My name is David Ajibade, and I am a student. I currently work at Queen Mary as a student project and campaigns assistant. And as Katrina mentioned, I was a student year and a student ambassador, and I've done um, work around the university. So I'm mainly going to go through my story of um, getting to university and work I've done in my role at Queen Mary. So I'll start off with a bit about myself, just some backstory that can help make clear why I made some decisions I made as I started at Queen Mary. So I was born in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and then I left Nigeria when I was 9. I remember very little about Nigeria. I haven't been back since I've left. Um, I'm in Lagos, Nigeria. And then I came here at the age of 9. I came to Wembley in London, and I always remember the first day of landing. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It felt like my world turned upside down. I felt like when I was young, I used to think if you went to Australia, you'd be standing upside down, and I literally felt like that when I came here um, because of how different things were and how the roads looked, how people looked, and it was very different. And so I remember it was very disorientating the first few days of being here. So I went to primary school in London, and then my family moved to Birmingham, and Birmingham is where I first thought about university. So at Birmingham, I went to two different secondary schools. I finished my primary school year 6 and then went to secondary school there. And in Birmingham, that was where I started to think about going to university. So the first thought came through a program that my school used to do called Black Boys Can. And they're this group that goes to universities, and they're a group of black boys in the school, and they would have a black speaker come to try and encourage them. And I remember one of the specific meetings that we had um, with the speaker. It was the same person every week. And I remember one meeting we had with him where he would speak about how if you wanted to if you wanted to if you wanted to progress in life and if you wanted to like get a house, get a car, this is one of the ways you can do it. You can study, go to university. If you go to university, people at university are more likely to have a higher pay. And so he gave the average pay for university graduate, and then he divided it into like paying your mortgage, paying for a car, paying for holidays and things like that. And he just divided it and savings and stuff. And I just remember that very clearly, thinking that is something I want to do and I want to go to university. And then at secondary school, I remember this as well. The first secondary school I went to was a performing arts school, and I really enjoyed theatre and drama initially. But then when I moved to the second school, the there wasn't really a theatre performing arts, and the English teacher wasn't very supportive, whereas on the other hand, the maths teacher and the science teachers were really supportive. And so I started to focus more on the sciences and engineering side of things from there. And then my family then were moved to Middlesbrough. So in Middlesbrough, even though at first I'd never heard of Middlesbrough, and me and my siblings were skeptical about going to Middlesbrough. I Now I call Middlesbrough my spiritual home because I feel like that was where I grew up and that was where I knew more, who I wanted to be more there. Even though I know a lot, when I tell people there, they're always surprised because a lot of people are trying to leave Middlesbrough and not go back to Middlesbrough. But I really enjoyed my time there, and there are a few reasons for that. So one of the first things was um, the school I went to. So the school I went to was I went there year 10 and 11, and my head of year was a man on the left, Mr. Andrew Asip, and he really, really supported me through my year 11, because there was a time where I have a bad habit where if there's a problem, I would try and fix it on my own. And I remember that I normally am never late to school, and I started being late because my mom was ill, and I tried to look after my siblings on my own. I didn't want to get any help. But he noticed I was, so he pulled me to the side and got me the support I needed. And I put this picture because I really didn't want to go to my year 11 prom, and I tried to fight. I was admitting one, but he was like, he really encouraged me to come, and I really, really had a really good time, and I'm glad I went. And this year is one of my, and these are some of my friends, and this is one of my close friend, and um, we, yeah, he was doing a photography course, and so he took a lot of pictures of me on that day. So that's why I still have pictures of that day with me. The other reason I really enjoyed my time in Middlesbrough was the youth groups. So I hear a lot of the time now people are saying youth groups have gone, that's why a lot of people on the streets and not doing good things. And for my personal experience, I really, really enjoyed the youth group at my time in Middlesbrough. So the youth groups we did we'd regularly do outdoors activity. There isn't much to do in Middlesbrough, but there is the great outdoors, and so we did go out. So we got taught things like kayaking, canoeing, sailing. The sailing, there was a we did it. I remember the sailing one very well because the sailing one, when we did it, we got professionals to come and help us. So we started off in little dinghy boats in the Lido, where we would sail and practice sailing in twos. And then once we got comfortable, they took us out into the sea, and we sailed from Hartlepool to Blythe, which was just half a day's journey, sailing. On the way there, it was really calm, and on the way back, it was rough seas, and everyone started throwing up. And sorry, you're eating, but it was not very good. And there was a student, there was one of the young person at diabetes, and couldn't keep down medication, and ambulance had to be called. It was just very, very hectic. And during that midst of that, I tried, they asked me if I could take control of, while the crew looked after this young people, they asked me if I could help lead the one or two other people who went ill, and tried to keep the boat steady, and they gave me instructions of what to do. And so I picked up a lot of valuable skills through a lot of events and things like that through the youth group. And one more I don't have a picture of was, one more thing that happened was when I was younger, in Middlesbrough, once I got to sixth form, my sixth form tutor told me when everyone was applying for uni, I wouldn't be able to go to university. And so when people apply, I would just be revising. And so that really made me deflated. And then on top of that, one thing I didn't mention was I was a refugee, and I got a deportation letter from the Home Office telling me I'd have to leave my family. And so it felt like the world was against me. And so I almost withdrew from university, from like education, and I couldn't concentrate until when my mom sent me to drop my sister off at a local youth group at a local church. And when I got there, the leader of the youth group told me about the young people and see me on the streets and how they look up to me as a role model. And yeah, and I dismissed what he said until one day where he asked if I could stay back once I dropped my sister off because they were short on volunteers. And I said, okay. And when I stayed back, I saw that a lot of the young people did look up to me, and I had to be more mindful of what I did and being a role model. And so I started refocus back on my education, and And yeah, I graduated with, I finished my A-levels and got decent A-levels. But I still couldn't go to university. But I thought, what can I do? What's the next best thing for me to do? So I thought, let me travel 6 hours to London to get some experience, because I knew I wanted to work in the health sector, and so I got a work apprenticeship at King's College Hospital. So I moved back to London, stayed in a hostel and tried to make that work, but it wasn't working, and I realized I needed to change something. So I moved back to Birmingham, and then I decided to make a plan A, B, C, D, E, F. I was like, one of them's got to work. And so my first plan A was go to university. Plan B was try and get like a lab job. Um, plan B was both try and get a lab job or a um, healthcare, a lab job or a work in hospital. And so I applied for university. Most of the universities I applied for were um, in London, I mean, up north, and then I applied to King's because I studied there, and Queen Mary. I'd never heard of Queen Mary whilst I was up north, but I remember one of my friends saying, um, a friend of mine in the past saying how difficult it was to get into Queen Mary, and how it's a really good university. And so I thought, let me give myself a challenge and see if I can get in. So I put Queen Mary, um, and I applied for two other jobs, one as a lab assistant at a Birmingham University lab, and at Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, a phlebotomist, because I'm really interested in bloods. I got the lab assistant role and the phlebotomist, but I was rejected to, I got into Queen Mary as well in a foundation program for biomedical science, but I couldn't get student finance, because even though at this time um, I'd lived for 12 years in the country, there were rules that meant I wasn't eligible for student finance. So I was rejected by all the universities I applied to because I couldn't get student finance and I couldn't fund myself. So, but one university got back to me, which was Queen Mary, and the bursaries team said, directed me to advice and counseling. And so, advice and counseling, someone in advice and counseling, Siobhan, I think she's moved over now to the Student Inquiry Center, responded to me and said, if you send over your documents, I can have a look. Then she did. I sent over my documents, not expecting anything because I didn't get back from any other university. I heard back from one other university, but I just told them I'm eligible for student finance, and that was the end of that conversation. And the advice and counseling service, really, they got. I sent my like case from the Home Office to them, and Siobhan helped me look through it and said, "You're right. You're eligible for student finance. With your permission, I'd like to take that to the university." And so I wasn't thinking anything of it. At this point, I had accepted the job offer as a phlebotomist because I really enjoyed working in hospital, and I continued. And so I took an holiday and I was about to start. And in the week that I was about to start, 3 days before I was about to start the new role, uni was about to start as well. Welcome week was about to start. I get a call from the bursaries team saying they reviewed my application and offered me a role to join Queen Mary. And so I accepted, obviously, the role I accepted the offer to join Queen Mary on the scholarship, Article 26 scholarship to study biomedical science with foundation year Queen Mary. But as I mentioned, it was 3 days before uni, so I couldn't get accommodation near the university at a reasonable price, because all the there wasn't any more accommodation left on campus, and most of the ones left around were very high priced. So what I did was I found accommodation in Wembley, which was really far, but because they couldn't get, it was the first year they just opened new accommodation and they weren't filling rooms up, so they reduced a lot of their price, and so I was able to get a very cheap accommodation. And this is, I really loved it. I really like this accommodation because you had a view. This was in the kitchen. We had a view of Wembley Stadium and of Wembley. It was on the 15th floor. It was really nice. And then in Welcome Week, the following week was Welcome Week. I came on campus and I got involved in the activities. There was a graffiti workshop that I did. And I went around societies and I was asking, I was like, I couldn't remember what I was asking, but I was asking, I'm just looking for a quiet place and somewhere to, there's like a home away from home, and everyone just kept saying St. Benet's Chapel, St. Benet's Chaplaincy. And so I decided to go St. Benet's Chaplaincy, and that became a home away from home for me at Queen Mary. And the reason I bring this up was during the foundation year, I remember coming into the chaplaincy on one day after a lecture, just to relax. And there was someone sat on the chair alone, and it was one of the Careers in Enterprise. I can't remember her name, someone from Careers in Enterprise. And she was doing a activity day with her staff, and they were doing like a treasure hunt around campus, and she's hid clues around campus, and they would find it and send her for the next clue. And then while she was waiting for them to send them, I started speaking to her and told her the story, a more in-depth version of the story I'm telling you now, of how I came to university. And then she said, "Oh, have you thought about being a student ambassador?" And I thought, oh, that sounds cool. I don't mind. I thought it was a voluntary role. And so she sent me the link and I applied, and it ended up being amazing. I always tell students when the students come to me for advice, or when I went as ambassador to schools, I would always tell them on campus tours, make sure you sign up wherever you go, try to sign up to be a student ambassador. You won't regret it. And as a student ambassador, I got to do a lot of amazing, cool things. So this was on top right, was the Face of QM promo that I did with the marketing team. With the events team, I did an event with Siddiq Khan. I remember this day, he was walking through, we were helping out in the cloakroom, me and another colleague, and he just stopped and said hi and said, "Would you like a photo?" And yeah, and so that was how I got that photo. And then a welcome of, at the time, I can't remember her name, but the Minister of University at the time. And then I got to lead the procession in a couple of graduations as well, as a mace bearer, which was really cool. And last but not least, this was at a school. I went to do an assembly. I remember this day. I went in expecting to speak to 30 students, and then I walk in and there's a big assembly or a lot of like over 100 students. And I just told my story, and yeah, and the thing I wanted to highlight, with the reason I put this picture, was on another day. So there was a school visit, campus visit, where we had a school come in, and one of the students asked about how I got a scholarship to study at Union. So I told them why I got the scholarship and my background into why I needed a scholarship. And I thought nothing of it. The following week, the school contacted me asking if I could come and do a little HE fair. And so the university said okay, and so I went there. I did a fair. Students asked me questions. I tried to answer as best I could, and then I went. Then I remember at the end of the year, the school contacted me asking if I could come again the following year, but I think I'd graduated at that time. Oh no, it wasn't. It was COVID, so it didn't happen. But they told me they had a record number of their students who loved my story and were inspired, apply for uni, and they had a record number of students from their school also make it into university as well. And the reason I brought that was because of this I mentioned earlier, the Star Action Student for Refugees. So this was something when I was applying for university and I was told I can get student finance, my mom found for me. So what they are is they're a charity that they collate information for refugees who are students who are school and trying to go to university, and they put it all on their website. And so when I was applying at Queen Mary and King's were the only Russell Group university that were there, and that offered full support for students, which was one of the all the universities I chose were from the Star Action Student from the website. And so what I do is anytime I'm as a student ambassador, one of the events I used to go to was for teachers. And the reason I do that is just to raise awareness that there are support available for students. And I know it's just because they don't know, not because they don't want to help, but there are other support available for students who might not know there are. And so I gave them resources that I used, and I did the same for my school as well in Middlesbrough. So they were able to support other students who were in the same situation as me at the university. And I graduated from biomedical science 2021 with a first class in my degree. And and before this, I was during COVID times. Before COVID, on a welcome week, I did some work with the student life team who I now work with, and it went really well. And Magda, who's now who's head of student life, asked if I could help with a work that the university has been asked to do of making a list of all students with COVID, list of students who tested positive with COVID and emailed in student health. So that was how I started my role in student life. And so I started as a student ambassador, and I would help to update the list in the mornings when I woke up. I'd go on student health email, go through the emails, update the spreadsheets, and respond back to emails. And then from there, I started supporting Welcome Week. And then when I graduated, I continued working in temporary position until a active role was put up, which I applied for and was successful in. And so that's how I got my role as a student project and campaign assistant at Queen Mary. And I love my role very much. Get to work with students from all different walks of life. And yeah, that is my story. One more thing I want to end on is this. I remember when I first came to chaplaincy, Ella the chaplain puts quotes on the doors as you're leaving. And I always remember seeing this one. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. That was from Mother Teresa. And the reason I'm ending on this is in my foundation year, because of the support I received from the university and all the help I got from all the amazing staff across all the different departments, I wanted to give back. And so, and that was something my mother put in me and my siblings, always try and give back wherever you were. Wherever we are, and we always try and do that. During my foundation year and my degree, I tried to help students who who weren't sure what to do, and I knew what to do. And I remember last week, one of those students who I helped from foundation year, he was international student and was struggling with his English and the coursework. We worked together and I tried to tutor him and help him. And now he came back to tell me he's just finished his master's and is about to start his PhD, and he's able to offer support to students that I know are looking for looking for lab roles to get work experience, try and get a job, and then they can pass on their experience to someone else as well. So that was one of the reasons I met. He came over to he saw me and he came to say hi and tell me, and so it reminded me of this quote. And so that's what I'd like to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. Let me stop recording, but I think you can see already there are people clapping virtually again. That's a little sad that we can't give you a